My daughter had an accident at her study abroad destination. I need to borrow $2,000 for the plane fare.
A sudden phone call from my son.
What? What did you just say?
My mind was in turmoil because I had come to visit my granddaughter, and he had come to visit me. Because I was visiting my granddaughter and the daughter he mentioned was sitting next to me with a scowling face.
Let's beat Daddy up. Ha ha.
I agreed to her suggestion and decided to punish my lying son. My husband died in an accident when I was 60. We had promised to travel to many places in our old age, but that was suddenly taken away from us. My granddaughter said, "Grandma, let's make that dream come true with me." My granddaughter Emma, who was 9 years old at the time, said to me as I was feeling down. From that point on, she and I made it our goal to travel abroad together. Thanks to my caring granddaughter, I gradually began to walk forward. My son and his wife had lived in the neighborhood since their marriage, and since they both worked, my granddaughter would come home after school at my house. My daughter-in-law, Susan, would pick up Emma after work, which was her routine on weekdays. Sometimes we would have supper together, and I never felt the loneliness of losing my husband. Even outside of school days, the whole family would come to visit me, and I felt that we were building a good family relationship. But there was one thing that worried me. That was my son Daniel. He kept changing jobs and could not find a stable job. I would have supported him if it was for career advancement, but the only reasons he gave were that he didn't like the job, he didn't like his boss, and so on.
I don't get paid enough.
That's how it is, isn't it? Every time you change jobs, you're starting from scratch.
I know that, but I can't find a company that fits me.
I blamed Daniel for coming to my house and blabbering, but it didn't seem to affect him at all. But he has a family, and he can't be talking like that himself. Don't give Susan and Emma a hard time. You need to buckle down and get to work. I used to say that every time I saw Daniel's face, as if I had a habit of saying it. He would reply, "Yes, yes, I know," but in the end he kept changing jobs after that. I was wondering what to do, but more importantly, I was feeling sorry for my daughter-in-law.
I'm working too, and somehow it's all right.
Susan smiled back at me, saying so. Nevertheless, I was feeling regretful because I wondered if I had not raised my son in the right way. However, there was no way my son could understand my feelings. Finally, he even started asking me for money from time to time. I can't do that, not even in a parent-child relationship. I'm sorry.
Well, you might be putting Susan and Emma out on the street.
Even though I refused, he kept bringing up his wife and granddaughter to gauge my reaction. When he said that, I couldn't prod him any further either. I understand. But make sure you use it for the both of them.
Okay, leave it to me.
Daniel replied in a light-hearted tone, and I gave him some money, but not much. Years later, as a junior high school student, Emma was interested in French. She learned it in class and became addicted to dramas and movies. From there, she studied hard and took French exams and passed them one after another. Then she began to think that she wanted to study abroad when she reached high school age. I'm glad you're getting your wish, but I guess I'm going to miss you.
What are you talking about? I'm going abroad first and you're coming later. Then you will have a guide and you won't have to worry. Right?
My granddaughter said with a confident look on her face. I was so happy that I could not believe that she was thinking like that. She is really a sweet girl. I will do my best to support her. Then the months passed, and Emma was a freshman in high school. My son came to my house with a serious look on his face.
I might not be able to send her to study abroad because I don't have enough money.
Unlike Daniel's previous requests, this time it was about my granddaughter. I answered immediately without any worries. No problem, I will pay for it.
What? Are you sure?
I had no hesitation because I wanted to support Emma's dream and my husband's insurance money was still untouched. Of course, I knew that my son had been counting on me from the beginning. But I was more concerned for my granddaughter's sake. Emma put more and more effort into her French studies, and in the summer of her sophomore year of high school, she successfully went to France to study. And my son, whom I had been worried about, finally found a job at a company where he could settle down and work, and he told me that he would be able to do his best next time. However, he asked me to help him until his salary stabilized, and I agreed to support my granddaughter's living expenses abroad. It is for Emma's sake. We exchanged messages with my granddaughter and had occasional video phone calls to see how she was doing. At that time, Daniel was busy with work and was not at home much, and Susan often came to visit me by herself. So, I was happy to spend time with the three of us on the video phone sometimes, drinking coffee and talking about things like this and that. Then, 6 months after Emma had studied abroad, I had an idea. I said to my granddaughter, "This is kind of sudden, but do you mind if I come to visit you? I would love to celebrate your birthday with you." I sent an email to my granddaughter. She immediately replied, "Sure." I was so happy that I decided to go visit Emma at her place on her birthday. Since I was going there, I decided to ask my son and his wife if there was anything I could bring with me.
She misses the taste of American candy bars.
That's what she told me, and she handed me the candy bars. How about Daniel? I think I should ask him too.
He's away on a business trip starting today. And I don't know when he will be back.
Oh, I see. Then you don't have to ask him. He wouldn't know what she needs anyway. My son usually left his child to his wife, so I thought it would be useless to ask him. So I decided to leave Japan the next day without asking Daniel anything.
Grandma.
When I arrived there, Emma met me at the airport. We were happy to see each other again after 6 months, and we spent as much time as time allowed, sightseeing and chatting. Although there was a time difference between the US and France, we were so happy that I didn't feel tired at all. On the day I returned home, as I was packing my bags at the hotel where I was staying, I received a call on my cell phone. Oh dear. Who is it? I looked at the screen and saw that the caller's name was Daniel. I pressed the call button, tilting my head at the person who rarely calls me.
My daughter had an accident at her study abroad destination. I need to borrow $2,000 to pay for the flight.
As soon as the call was connected, I heard my son's impatient voice on the other end of the line.
What? What did you just say?
I asked back, not understanding what he meant. Thinking it might be a wrong number, I checked the screen again, but it still seemed to be Daniel.
Banks are closed on Saturdays and Sundays, aren't they? Besides, I'm on a business trip right now. I'm going to pick up the money directly at home on Sunday, so get ready for me.
Yeah. Confused and overwhelmed by my son talking so fast, I could only say, okay.
Oh. Then don't call Susan. She's panicked and in no condition to talk.
He told me that and unilaterally hung up on me. What the hell is going on? I was becoming increasingly confused. I was talking in speaker mode while packing, so Emma, who was beside me, also heard the conversation.
Dad is really a money slacker, isn't he?
My granddaughter said in disgust with a sigh. He's a troubled man. I'll have to call him one more time and give him a lesson. I mumbled and tried to pick up my phone.
Wait.
My granddaughter stopped me.
Let's beat Dad. Ha ha.
A surprising suggestion from her. Well, that might be a good idea. I had already lost my patience with my son who was trying to get money from me by even telling a ridiculous lie that his own daughter had been injured. So I immediately agreed with Emma's suggestion. On the way to the airport, my granddaughter and I devised a plan to expose my son's evil and decided to trap Daniel. On the Sunday my son specified, I was at home after returning to Japan. I had a slightly thick envelope in my hand. Daniel had sent me a text message saying that he would be there around 10 o'clock, but he arrived a little earlier than the time.
Hi, Mom.
I pointed out to him that he sounded very carefree for someone who told me that his own daughter had been in an accident.
I have to stay calm or I'm going to lose my mind. My wife is already having a hard time with all the crying and fussing.
He suddenly looked very serious and said so with a downcast look on his face. I know how you feel. I felt the same way as you when your father had his accident.
Sure, you were acting all stout-hearted back then.
As I empathized with him, Daniel gently closed his eyes and looked up a little with an air of theatricality. I looked at my son coldly as I held out the envelope I had on hand to him. Here, I put a little more in the envelope.
Thank you very much.
Immediately, my son's eyes lit up and he immediately slipped it into the pocket of the jacket he was wearing, without even bothering to check the contents. Then he simply said, "Well," and hurried out the front door. But then, about an hour later, I heard Daniel's angry voice coming from the front door. "Mom." I slowly unlocked the door.
Oh my goodness, what's going on?
What do you mean by that?
About what? It was obvious that he was annoyed by my blurted-out response.
You lied to me about the money being in the envelope. I was in big trouble.
My son yelled at me loudly. Oh no, you are disturbing the neighbors with your yelling. Why don't you go inside for now? I told him in a calm voice and led him through to the living room.
You know, I'm a busy man.
Daniel followed me, mumbling something. But as soon as we entered the room, my son stopped moving.
What? Why?
Then he let out a startled cry and backed away.
Dad. You. Long time no see.
That's no wonder, because in the living room, there was my granddaughter and my daughter-in-law.
Honey, welcome home.
Susan, too, smiled, not quite a smirk, but more of a grim smile.
Wait a minute. What does that mean?
Confused, my son's mouth was still open.
We're in the middle of a girls' party, Tilda. Isn't it? Mom and Grandma.
Emma looked at her mother and me in turn and finally smiled at Daniel. He said, "Oh, is that so?" And then he slowly backed up a little bit. I thought he was going to run away from this place, but he couldn't.
Sounds like fun, doesn't it? More importantly, you were wrong about Emma having an accident.
Ah.
At any rate, I'm glad she's safe. I looked at my son with a relieved expression.
Oh, what? Maybe it's a scam or something.
Then he pretended to be a blabbermouth and set the tone for us. Daniel, who thought I knew nothing about it, began to tell me how he had been duped. Well, now that he's been successfully trapped, let's get started. I looked down at my son's hand.
Oh, no, I might have given him the wrong one,
I said and took the envelope from Daniel. Then the contents of the envelope splattered out onto the living room floor.
Oh, no.
My son panicked and tried to pick them up, which were scattered all over the place. Perhaps because he was in such a hurry, he had a hard time picking them up and even started mumbling and complaining. Damn. Then my granddaughter got up from her chair and slowly picked up something that had fallen at her feet.
Huh? What's this?
Emma deliberately widened her eyes and showed exaggerated surprise. Yes, in fact, what was inside the envelope was not money, but photographs.
What? Hey, Dad. What does this mean?
She asked Daniel, this time in a slightly cold voice.
Well, it means...
He was slurred by Emma's questioning, and his point of view was not clear. It was a picture of my son walking into a payday loan. You had a debt, didn't you? The collection started and you couldn't do anything about it. So your idea was to trick me into taking the money, wasn't it? After I said this, I thrust the demand letter that I had prepared on the table in front of Daniel.
Why do you have this thing?
Where do you think I was when you called me?
Huh? I don't know about that. I thought you were at home watching TV.
Surprised, my son answered my question honestly.
Well, sure, that's the time I usually do that. I was abroad at the time, at Emma's study abroad place.
Daniel rolled his eyes at my answer and mumbled, "Well, why?" I was visiting to wish her a happy birthday. My son, whose head must have been spinning, didn't say anything back. After a while, however, he strode up to his wife and said,
Hey! Why didn't you tell me my mom was overseas? You must have known about it anyway, now that you're here too.
Daniel squealed at Susan as if to question her. Then his wife stood up and glared at my son.
Yes, of course I did. I asked her to give Emma the candy bars. I couldn't talk to you since you never came home.
Not to be outdone by him, Susan retorted at once. Daniel choked up and fell silent. I was calling my daughter-in-law after making plans with my granddaughter and deciding to trap my son. Then she didn't seem to be anxious.
Finally, he even decided to pretend that even his own daughter had been in an accident.
She was stunned. Everyone in the family knew that he had been sloppy with money for some time. In fact, when Susan was cleaning the house, she found a letter of debt demand addressed to Daniel. She was curious about what Daniel was doing with the money, so she apparently followed him several times and took a picture of him going into the payday loan. When I heard this story, I asked her to help me, and the three of us decided to punish Daniel.
So this time, I pretended to be fooled once to lure you in.
How was our performance, everyone? We gave an impassioned performance that even the Academy Award-winning actresses would have been surprised by, don't you think? Well, that's not all. There are still some interesting developments waiting for you, so please continue to watch the rest of the show.
Don't be silly. You got me into a lot of trouble because of that.
He did not check the contents of the envelope he received from me and gave it directly to the collection agency. So the person in charge opened the envelope to check the contents, and for the first time, he discovered that inside was photographs. He was asked, "Sir, what is this?" He apologized repeatedly, and he managed to get him released from there.
That's why, Mom. I need to pay back the loan right away, so please lend me $2,000. Please, I beg you, for the rest of my life.
My son had never learned his lesson, and he said the most outrageous things. But I ignored him and focused on him. Susan is paying for your living expenses, and I am paying for Emma's study abroad. Then what on earth is your debt for?
That's none of your business.
Oh. Is it something you can't tell me? As I slowly questioned him, Daniel became silent. Then I'll tell you.
What?
I took another picture from the table and fluttered it in front of him. I wonder if you were paying your dues to this woman. Yes, Daniel was having an affair and was spending money on his partner until he was in debt.
Wait a minute, how much do you know about this?
He looked at me as if he was looking at something horrible. Well, I guess that's understandable. After all, everything he did was being tracked.
I'm the one who took that picture, too. I had complained to your mother about you coming home late, but I couldn't talk to her about the affair.
Susan told Daniel in an angry voice. Apart from the demand letter, Susan had been suspicious of his late return home and had also investigated his relationship with a woman. Daniel, as expected, was doing evil, but Susan seemed to have put up with it without divorcing him because Emma was not yet an adult. Incidentally, as for this affair partner, it seems that the relationship started shortly before the granddaughter went to study abroad. My daughter-in-law once told me with a sigh that she just didn't know about it before, and that there might be something else.
You're not only sloppy with money, you're sloppy with women. You're disgusting. Mom, you should break up with him as soon as possible. I'm fine without you. Dad.
Emma firmly expressed her feelings and smiled at Susan.
What the hell? You're a child, don't meddle in our marital affairs.
My son, who did not seem to like that, shouted at my granddaughter as well.
Besides, you're supposed to be studying abroad. Why are you here?
Now that he realized it, he said, "I'm not letting you go there for fun." He accused her.
I'm just back home temporarily. My grandmother is funding me quite a bit, and I came back to punish you with her.
But even the airfare isn't free. My mom probably paid for it anyway.
I just borrowed it from Grandma this time, and I promise to pay her back when I work. I'm not like you.
My granddaughter retorted, and Daniel couldn't say anything to this and shut up. She was so much better than my son.
Emma says this, too, and you should get a divorce.
Susan thrust the divorce papers, with her column filled out, at Daniel.
I would also appreciate alimony for the affair and child support, please.
The son then made a fuss, claiming that there was no way he could pay.
Emma. If mom and dad get divorced, you'll be in a lot of trouble, you know. You hear it's tough being a single parent, right?
I'll be fine without you.
Granddaughter easily dodged Daniel's attempts to hang on.
Mom, please. Please tell Susan it's better not to leave me.
My son, in desperation, now begged me.
You'll have to take care of it yourself. The amount I was giving you for Emma's living expenses abroad and the amount transferred to her account are different. What does that mean?
That's not important right now.
No, it does matter. Let me be clear here now.
He then confessed that he had taken some of the money he had received and transferred it to his daughter's account.
You really are irredeemable, you know that? I don't want a child who cheats his parent. I want you to stay out of my life.
Oh, no.
I said coldly, and Daniel went into a state of abandonment and froze on the spot. The divorce between the son and daughter-in-law was subsequently finalized. Daniel was to be charged a lump sum of $42,000 in alimony and child support. He could no longer borrow from anywhere and asked me to loan him the money, but of course I firmly pushed him away. In the end, he sold the house and paid his alimony and other bills, but he was not able to pay back all of his debt from the payday loan, and some of the debt remained. Even though my son was disowned by me, he asked me again to let him live in our home because he had no place to live. Of course, I told him that it was impossible. He is now working several part-time jobs in addition to his job in order to repay the debt. Meanwhile, my granddaughter has returned home safely after completing her studies. She is living with her mother in an apartment near me, and we still interact with each other. It seems that Emma now has a goal of conveying the good qualities of the US to other countries. To achieve this goal, she said she would like to travel around the US with me little by little.
My senior years are happy and joyful.
I looked up at the clear blue sky and told my husband in heaven. What do you think of this story? Please subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.